They called him crazy. They spat that word like it absolved them of looking any deeper. But they never saw the truth. They never watched the nights he lay awake while the city slept. They never heard the small, constant soundtrack of his life. The cough of loneliness, the distant laughter that never included him. The hollow echo when he whispered his name, and the world answered with nothing. He wasn't born a monster. He was born invisible. A child who folded his small self into the cracks of living rooms and classrooms, learning to shrink so no one would step on him. A boy who learned to swallow questions whole because answers were expensive and people were cheap. A man the world refused to look at, not by malice at first, but by habit, by convenience, by the slow cruelty of indifference. Every time he cried for help, silence answered back like a practiced lie. Every time he tried to smile, the room broke into a chorus of derision. The laugh like a blade that cut clean through the fragile thread of hope. Ignored when he needed love. Mocked when he showed weakness. Humiliated when he dared to dream. Remember the little things, the teacher who glanced past him as if he were air. The friend who filmed his fall and posted it for applause. The clerk who refused kindness because kindness cost time. The system that funneled him through boxes labeled unimportant. These were not single storms, they were 1,000 tiny rains that soaked him until his skin hardened. Day after day, the world taught him one lesson. You do not matter. Your pain is a joke. Your existence is nothing. Small betrayals stacked like poker chips, a lost job, a shouted insult, a door closed in his face, a doctor's hand that wrote him off. Each one cheapened him. Each one whispered the same quiet instruction until it became a mantra. Shrink, accept, disappear. So the boy who wanted to belong became a man who wanted to burn it all down, not because he loved fire, but because fire was the only language loud enough to be noticed. Not because he delighted in cruelty, but because cruelty finally answered him back with the only thing he'd ever been given, attention. He hadn't been born with darkness inside him. The world planted it. They watered it with mockery, pruned it with neglect, and laughed while it took root. Think of that slow transformation, not a sudden snap, but a chemical stew of humiliation, loneliness, and rage simmering for years. Think of the way shame mutates into strategy. Think of how despair learns to speak in sharp, efficient sentences. There were moments, a mirror's confession, a night's accumulation of all the slights when he felt the first small seed germinate, the realization that invisibility and vulnerability were fatal. If no one would look at his humanity, he could make them stare at his consequence. If no one would hear his pain, he could create a sound that would never be ignored. And so he crafted a new identity from the ruin of the old, armor made of contempt, a grin forged from jagged memories, a laugh engineered to slice through the polite silence that had haunted him. He learned the rules the world had taught him and used them back against it, until that invisible man finally realized, if no one will see me as human, then they will see me as a monster. Not because he chose evil as a creed, but because the only way the world would read him at all was through fear. And fear, he discovered, is a language everyone understands. Every laugh he gave to the world was crushed by pain, because behind every smile was a man screaming for help, a man suffocating in silence, begging for someone to see the storm inside him. But no one ever listened. Every dream he dared to have was suffocated by rejection, not once, not twice, but so relentlessly that hope itself became a cruel joke. The world didn't just deny him success, it denied him the right to even exist as himself. To be different was to be despised, to be weak was to be prey, to be human was to be humiliated. And every fragile piece of hope he held onto was slaughtered, not by fate, not by chance, but by a system that never cared. A system designed to chew men up, to grind them into dust, to strip them of their worth, and then point the finger at them and say, "You are the problem." Society doesn't just abandon men like him. It mocks them. It humiliates them. It rips away their dignity piece by piece. It beats them down until all that remains is rage, until the only identity left to wear is the mask of madness. And here's the truth no one dares to say. Monsters are not born. They are carved. Carved by rejection, shaped by cruelty, and sharpened by the cold indifference of the world. So tell me, was he truly born a monster? Or did the world force him to become one? Was the madness his choice? Or was it the only mask left to survive in a world that never wanted him alive? Arthur Fleck didn't create the Joker. Society did. It wasn't the makeup, the gun, or the madness that birthed him. It was the silence of neighbors who looked away when he cried for help. It was the laughter of strangers who mocked his pain instead of healing it. It was the betrayal of a city that pretended to care but never truly listened. They didn't see a man. They saw a joke. They didn't hear his voice. They drowned it with their noise. And when the system that promised to protect him cut off his medication, stripped him of his dignity, and tossed him aside like garbage, that's when the transformation began. Every rejection was a crack. Every humiliation, another fracture. Every broken promise, another brushstroke painting the mask he would never remove. Arthur didn't wake up one morning and decide to be a monster. He was pushed into it, cornered, beaten, starved of love, until all that was left was the reflection of what society had carved into him. The world handed him pain instead of purpose, cruelty instead of care, emptiness instead of empathy. And then, when the man they abandoned finally set fire to the stage they built for him, they pointed their fingers and called him evil. But here's the truth they don't want to face. The Joker wasn't born evil. He was born ordinary. And that's the real horror. Because if an ordinary man can be twisted into a monster, then so can you. So can anyone. Every villain you fear is nothing more than a mirror, showing you what happens when society stops caring. This is the truth they never want you to see. Monsters are not born. They are made. Not in an instant. Not with a single choice. But slowly, silently, relentlessly. They are sculpted in silence, brick by brick, scar by scar, forged not in fire, but in the cold burn of humiliation that never leaves, created not in the shadows, but in the blinding spotlight of rejection that mocks their very existence. A man does not wake up one morning and decide to become a villain. No, he is shaped. He is pushed. He is carved down until the only thing left is rage. He is molded by years of being unseen, sharpened by the cruel laughter of those who mock him, poisoned by the betrayal of the very system he trusted to protect him. Every insult, every cruel word, every door slammed in his face. Every time society looked away when he needed saving, it chisels at his humanity piece by piece, until there is nothing left to break. And when there is nothing left to break, there is nothing left to lose. And when a man has nothing left to lose, he becomes dangerous. The villain you fear is not an accident. He is not a curse. He is a reflection, a mirror that society refuses to look into. Behind every monster's eyes lies a human story, a story of pain, a story of rejection, a story of a world that could have saved him, but instead chose to push him off the edge. So when a man like that finally erupts, when the mask breaks and the monster rises, the question isn't why did he become a villain? The real question is, how could he not? So the next time you point your finger and call someone a villain, stop, breathe, and think, do you really believe a man wakes up one morning and simply chooses darkness? Do you really think anyone is born with a desire to burn the world down? Or was he pushed, cornered, dragged into the shadows by forces bigger than him? Did he choose rejection? Or did rejection stalk him, day after day, until it became the air he breathed? Did he choose humiliation? Or was it forced onto him, over and over, until his soul wore the scars like chains? Did he choose loneliness? Or was he abandoned, discarded by the very people he needed most? A man doesn't transform into a monster overnight. It's not one event. It's a slow execution, death by 1,000 cuts. Every ignored cry for help, every door slammed in his face, every laugh aimed at his pain, every promise of hope from the system, delivered as nothing but betrayal. And then, one day, the mask of sanity cracks. The smile dies. The broken pieces of that man no longer fit together. He doesn't just break. He becomes something else. Something darker. Something the world itself created, and now pretends to fear. So the real question is not, why did he become a villain? The real question is, why did society force him to? Because monsters are not born. They are made. And if you dare to look closely, you'll see the truth that terrifies us all. Society has blood on its hands, and every villain you fear is its reflection.